Okay, so I'll lock it.
Devon had it.
I'm prepared
I got the
to
test.
I got it too.
judge a debate about the African Union.
The words African Union will be.
The African Union is a model of. You might hear another empire around. You
I
like
mean,
that?
that's at least like kind of a real argument.
Hey, I cut some very good
Whoa.
cards that say specifically Somaliland and Somali pirates, and David went nuh-uh, and I went uh-huh.
Neither of us.
Well, it's okay. Wait, so we're good. We sent up.
Yeah.
Are you saying like
Should this impact her piracy?
80
Pirates, yeah.
chance we can switch. by the way.
Pirates.
The only type of guy who do a semester.
The semester at sea sounds so tough.
All right, put me out of my misery. Let's do it.
Hold up. I have your misery.
Kevin, you asked for this. Just remember at the end of the round when you're sitting there going,
No, I'm ready.
you asked for this.
I don't know if I got it.
I'm here for you, Gavin.
I'm really happy for it.
No.
Well, if you're
I really need Ramon right now.
Hey, if you're confused, just follow CG.
Default CG. You can
Alright.
resume that.
I got something I'm scared of.
Dude,
Guys,
it's hella
it's
chill.
fine.
Wait, it's
I
hella chill.
understand. Okay,
I got it.
Bryce, it's gonna be fine.
Okay,
He saw the word contention.
She went, she's so happy now.
ready.
Alright, anyone not ready? We need to get what is the investment? Somaliland economy is growing now. Super 444. The Somaliland government has successfully brought a higher GDP per capita economic activity than many internationally recognized states in the region. The whole government and democratization and stayed more successful things in Somalia despite a lack of international support and recognition. That's because Somaliland isn't relying on loans. You're 13. Somaliland is emerging to create a fierce economy and political systems in Africa, overcome the isolation, civil war, literacy, shortage of natural resources, and foreign aid. Somaliland's government starts attacking no returns degree of political accountability. The black race advantage also bring economic resilience, peaceful elections, and resolve disputes in the institution of be democratic, otherwise they'll pro-coasting taxes. Somaliland lacks a dependency syndrome that many African nations suffer from as a result of never-ending coordinated confusion. And recognition means loans. You make 11. Because Somaliland's government cannot access funding for the World Bank, IMF, or other major donors, officials were forced to negotiate with citizens of business needed for financial support. And loans push Somaliland into economic and democratic crisis. Kavanaugh 03. Structural adjustments by the IMF and the World Bank of government spending on education, healthcare, environment, and price subsidies devalue the national currency. And so the bank and then drop today's critical bureaucratic economics and ideology that equates development and export-led economic growth fueled by foreign borrowing and investment. The effort new larger loans from need to service payment on previous loans. The more the borrowing, the greater the need for learning and borrowing becomes something of an economic addiction. And China uses Africa to challenge the IMF and the World Bank. 23. China's catching up to the Western dominated international monetary fund and World Bank taking changes between the US and Western allies. China for vertical lending in Africa and China challenges the Western model providing assistance in negotiating debt relief powers. And the opposite stage for tensions between the US and Western states against China. Daughter Med 24. The Horn of Africa is hotspot for international competition driven by China's rising economic presence in Somaliland and underutilized assets. The United States cannot afford to overlook Somaliland recognition geopolitical far-reaching and ramifications for East Asian and Red Sea corridor. And China's interest in Somaliland. Contract 21. China offer infrastructure projects to Somaliland, and through Taiwan, Somaliland can maintain better bilateral relations, free trade, and investments with the U.S. and China's infrastructure development. It gives power for play through attractive ideological political narratives. That causes chances of war. 2018. The rise of China can produce a hegemonic war, and the incomplete captures are a conflict prone. And the United States and China are deeply involved in major security issues that one will develop into greater global war. It's existential. Mark 19. And what we'll do to break out, and the leaders push the red button. Now is a dangerous time. You have to be less stable and Nova predicts, and the weapons would be used to be a fast war. Contention 2 is Ethiopia. The Somaliland Ethiopia dispute was resolved the window for a deal to return. Same 25. The dispute between Ethiopia and Somalia has been resolved. They agreed to strengthen bilateral relations focused on the Verde Convention in February to hold technical process. Not clear if Ethiopia has discarded the deal with Somaliland. And Somaliland's still open. 24. Somaliland agreement remains intact. And the Africa has a 2/3 majority. Most likely implementation includes Ethiopia. Lana Kara 23. This issue may have a 2/3 majority by member states. And AU recognition spills over. Part 24. Ethiopia and African countries held off following the AU's policy against redrawn boundaries. Subpoint 1 is war. App causes Somali-Ethiopian war. Zubir 24. The Living War resulted in a memorandum of Somalia saying the Ethiopian expansion is a violation of Somaliland to war prevent recognizing sovereignty. And independently, AU recognition forces invasion of Somaliland. Psalm 24. Somalia's reaction is rooted in the perception of section to bring Somalia back willing to go to war against Somalia to maintain sovereignty. It's try or die for Somalia. C24. Somalia is ready to defend sovereignty using every available means of war on Somaliland, threatening and framing it as an existential threat. Somalia has the capability. CS20. China delivers large-scale military aid to Somalia, impelling to retaliate against Somaliland diplomats during conflicts on the behest of China and consequence of great power war. Only 24. War will draw the Red Sea states, which consider the water essential for security of the United States. China and Europe has military presence. Russia adventure the prey the region could become a battlefield by disrupting trade and revive extremist groups that are risking the entire world. Extinction. Claire 23. In the Great Battle model, where the axis or misunderstanding could escalate, tension cause leaders are fighting them, negotiating, and the weapons can be used in the family causing nuclear weapons or reach extinction bioweapons, and the essentially spark a pandemic and autonomous systems taking humans out of decisions. So point two is terror. All squads on the line. Kyage 1111. There's been a decline also about the corporate security forces leading significant improvement in deterrence to recommend attacks, 2% protection attacks, decreased propaganda, and decks counter-terrorist split Somalia and pirates. Choke 24. Trading relations with Ethiopia under my age, basically Ethiopia was making contributors to Somalia, called the country with the Kairos on liquid deployed knowledge of Somali contact facing deep diversity. I know to claim that bullying and challenge Ethiopia restored security back in briefing conditions, but also to conjure disable state governments opposed federal call for withdrawal the Wahhabite defense of the final blow requiring to get Al-Shabaab to exploit the Ethiopian driving to disrupt humanitarian programs, causing chaos for pirates to exploit. And that motive is Al-Shabaab to attack. With before, Al-Shabaab rejected the MOU saying that violence time received by will fight, promised to fight back Ethiopian moves, and it engages nuclear prolif, round 24. Nuclear strategy enables nuclear prolif in African, increasing nuclear investment and security of materials. Cut voice seat. And then I don't think I flipped anything else, so I'll just
Yeah, so it's just the last part of it.
Yeah.
Doctors. On the second part of the document. Oh, never mind. This one's. I was in document, so here's the document. Really that's this. Isn't this?
Oh, fine, then that case open. Alright. This is one of them, just, big. Slowly. Forward habitat.
What do I do?
Is a PDF okay? Do you want to it? So you can open the PDF. And read it all. So documents, that's one box. Go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are from conceptualized democracy. After democracy is declining, BB 1212. After remains in mutually authoritarian style, democracy deteriorated. Improvements have largely stalled. They may even regress in Somaliland is a model. Mills et al. In 21. Somaliland show the way for country to follow regular election. Generation sees democracy as diluting the clan system. Somaliland improved democratic norms of regional democratic superpower. Recognition promotes democracy. Spain 12.1. Opposition and recognition comes from authoritarian regimes to Somaliland, democratic successor president, a recognition signal democracy value in Africa and opportunity to build a democratic region. Democratic decline spells global uncertainty. 1824. With population double, Africa holds democracy, global democracy future. The youth committed to movements chasing away authoritarian regimes to regain value democracy will have to reform. Africa's key urbanization and rapid population growth. Goal zone 21. Africa's whole region with rapidly growing population most rapidly urbanizing CO2 output growing faster than population urbanization leads to CO2 emissions increase. Factor 14 climate decision making non-inclusive Africa will undercut efforts African emissions will overwhelm efforts elsewhere. Democracies are key to solving climate change. 21. Litigation fight climate change. Democracies allow free flow of info for civil liberty, mobilize free, expressive checks and balances, increase likelihood of politics corrected, decarbonization of societies must do. Consumer habits will change democracy better than any other political arrangement. It's existential. 22. Climate change collapse in society, mass extinctions, climate change trigger catastrophic risks such as conflict, disease, climate change, exacerbate water, food insecurity, coalescing the system-wide synchronous failures, great power conflicts over carbon budget, climate impacts, contention to overfishing. Somalia is corrupt, allowing overfishing. Molo 25. Illegal fishing off Somalia coast to reach alarming levels. Tuna target for terminal efforts, catches surpassed the sustainable limits without action. Stocks collapse by 2026. Somalia's waters are a major ground for tuna. Somali fisheries minister allowed companies to fish. There's lack of transparency. Somali government struggles. Vessels continue destructive methods. Recognition is key to expand Somaliland's jurisdiction, expand enforcement. Safi 17 finds Somaliland asserts a new 200-mile EEZ. The new EEZ enables Somaliland to release maritime territory and fisheries in the Gulf of Aden. Somaliland repudiates Somalia's claim to Somaliland's waters of stated entitled the maritime zone. Somaliland enforces sustainability better. Zidane 24 finds it. The SCG protects Somaliland's water from illegal fishing equipped with modern boats, radar equipment, and the forces. The fact that the SCG has several bases equipped with infrastructure achieved by Somaliland to combat illegal fishing, significantly enhancing prospects for communities with illegal fishing. Depleted resources, SCG formidable and employing advanced surveillance and robust cooperation. Local fishermen now enjoy groundwork for sustainable development. The region is key and vital for a host of foreign powers. Glacier in 2035 with more basketball most productive fishing in the world, including the small EEZ. Please travels low to access migratory species and conflict in the region and reemerge from unmanaged competition. Distant fishing fleets follow Stockholm. Africa has high blood fishes. High biodiversity fishes from intense nutrient upwelling global demand derives targeting the region by India, Iran, China, Pakistan, and France. This causes nuclear conflict. The FDF finds that if people are hungry, the state is not stable, break down a lot of large regions where short wars follow an incredible scenario for World War III famine and trigger nuclear wars, cause extinction, start 15 by the world into mass extinction, and then create environment too cold and dark broken life and bad for potential pandemics. Somalia risk of understudied pathogenic vector Jamal 23 pandemic foreign pathogens. Somalia and pest livestock teams are understudied because of insufficient data for approaches. There is an urgent need for better studies so that sustainable control strategies can be planned. Climate change and bright lines, small problems, and every border diseases are emerging in areas where they do not exist before vector-borne disease that account for more than 70% of all infectious diseases. But the part they are small and lacks information systems. Thus far, 70% of reliable and timely health information is fundamental for health ecosystems. Somalia and HIS assessment on major weaknesses in quality strategic plan legal framework in place. Fragmented sub-information system recognition is required. They find the multilateral agencies who will not be in Somaliland as an independent entity. Found rates for requests for recognition and investment with getting access to directly increased pandemic prevention. 3.3 finds that through launching global network private people for infectious disease threats, international pathogen surveillance network and connect countries and regions, pandemics, risk nukes, vulnerability, incapacity, and commanders. Oh, that's the part there. Also marked off right now.
No.
This totally.
We just fixed all the highlights with all the cards over there. For this. So all the highlights dramatic.
So it's like all the world stuff.
The who card was right, yeah.
One of them was, another one was. the marked dot.
This is the last one, right?
Um,
RC three.
okay, I'm fine with it. Wait, actually, sorry. I actually want this. You can, okay, cool. I'll just wait here. Yeah, sure.
Actually, we'll take 10 seconds to prep, so.
Oh, okay. What else is- what's the climate right now? The climate right line? I think it's 2026.
So like, what are the actual physical conditions of it?
What do you mean?
Like, what does the climate have to do? Like, what does the climate look like? How does it have to change?
Like what app catalyzed, or the kind of development that it catalyzed?
Yeah, but you also said that the climate change pushes the red line, so I'm not really sure what that red line is.
1 second.
Like your code's evidence is like, it's tagged as climate change pushes the red line.
C1 or C2?
Either you're referencing your, I assume, C1.
Yeah, so basically what happens kind of change is that like the bright line is being pushed for like a host of reasons, but specifically we'd say that like urbanization in Africa is like.
Sure, yeah, but like what conditions have to be met? Like how much do we have to like see carbonization increase or like gentrification increase or like ice caps melts in the Arctic or whatever you'd like to do
In order to cause extinction?
yeah, in order to yeah, sure.
I mean, we would just say that like the point at which like certain species go extinct because of climate
what
change,
kind of-
because they're displaced. I mean, it can be like anything, right?
So okay, sure. How long do we have to wait for us to see these like hypothetical species go extinct?
I mean, I think that like bright line evidence says 2026, if I'm not wrong, but like
Sorry,
since,
which other?
my bright line evidence is for nutrition. That's my bad. Yeah, we're just saying that like Africa is key to preventing like climate change.
Sure, but preventing what? Like what physical conditions are we preventing?
As
And also
long
your
as-
evidence is like kind of old.
As long as you can solve that for some amount of like decarbonization or certain species not going extinct, we would say that that like checks back for a lot of existential risk, right?
Can I
So
ask a follow-up?
even I think we've spent like 2 minutes on that, right? Let's talk a little bit about let's talk about China and the US, right? We say that China challenges like the IMF and the World Bank.
So
So
it's like it's more about like the region as like a form of like their presence in the region. Like China goes to like Somalia, obviously, right? And like Somaliland has become a really important thing for like China because of its relationship with Taiwan. And you're saying that like when we see Western powers like IMF or World Bank, which are backed by like the US or backed by like the like NATO countries.
I understand that. That's not necessarily my question.
Sure, sorry.
But I didn't finish asking
Yeah,
my
sorry,
question.
sorry.
What the question actually is that like why does like Somaliland like take loans from these Western backed institutions if it already has the support of like other like countries or its economy is doing fine by itself?
Our argument isn't that the economy is doing fine right now. It's that we have the democracy. Like I'm sorry it's tagged that way, but like the way we're framing it is that we have a strong democracy that's allowing the economy to recover because of the like tax revenue thing that like Civitora identifies and York 13 identifies. The problem is that loans are like a really incentive cop out, right? Tons of third world countries are like, yo, I should take loans because they've proven to be really helpful in boosting my economy or boosting my infrastructure. But our argument is that long term that isn't the case. Or that's fine. Last six.
Oh, DOS, perfect, yeah.
should be called into only this one. The order's just gonna be straight. There's gonna be a decent amount of analytics, but some of them are in the doc and all the analytics stuff.
No, I'm just looking at the ones. Like,
Okay, is anyone not ready?
it's open, it's like really.
And then, so one card.
Yeah. Or that, no, that could be small. Okay, is anyone not ready? Cool. I'm just gonna start on my first word. Start on democracy. 1, non-unique. After democracy is backsliding by models, career 24. After the recorded several different consolidation, the number has been higher of coups that the best of democracy in Africa was 2010 to 2019. All the current one outcomes of the male Tea Party elections further backwards. There's no reason why Somalian democracy is uniquely key because there's other democracies that exist in Africa. But then also their gold team evidence indicates that the African efforts are key to stop climate change. No, but it indicates that other efforts still have to exist for Africa's efforts to not be able to overwhelm. They reach no evidence saying that other countries are solving for climate change now. We would also say analytically that climate change is past the right line because there's so many other big producers that are influenced by the affirmative. Then turn it because Somaliland models encourage fake elections, human rights violations, and oppression. That's on 24. Two political parties permitted in Somalia, the will and plan whether ways allowed to compete for parliament policies and enforce daily human rights freedom, judicial and movement or prescribed. The shooters of buildings are common to suppress opposition to secession. Then turn it again, these Somaliland democracies higher enemies of non-recognition, but lack of access to forces, governments or tax revenue. Make 11. Internal independence, tax revenue, keep them to the policy, legal limits, and check the lands, government rights, product, political compromise, and those friendly, not trying to by the really value of informal limits, the government will believe in Congress, but no one has enough power to destroy it. All implicate this here, right now. The Somaliland model is comparatively better than the rest of the Horn of Africa because it's indicating that they are surviving without aid, which means that they actually have to listen to the people. But first, when you affirm, you devalue that because they no longer have to listen to the people, which makes their democracy worse, but also it justifies even their current bad behaviors, which means that they're not the high level of democracy that is needed for the climate change efforts that they're talking about. There's no substance here, but then no internal links all causes of democracy in Africa. Out of 24, the continent's non-democracy becomes executed, no longer recognized, no corruption by leadership, colonialism, impossible coverage, validation, informed decision fails. You're impossible to pursue the momentary individual gain, undermines the ability for action to act interest, and then turn again because international climate financing is a debt trap that prevents adaptation, i.e. 24. Course involved in countries spending more than twice as much as surveys to the received by the community with that going into and support over half of creative loans rather than getting countries that are high risk of defaulting and the ability of zones when a driver storm hits their a vicious cycle of borrowing. Then go to overfishing. Turn it. Egyptian backlash cuts Somaliland's maritime access. No fishing. In all 24. Recognition disruptive distribution of fragmentation from Somalia weakens and use the ability to reserve control Somalia for the direct the Egypt hedge logging about Egypt exactly the vulnerabilities and restriction American access would have devastating effects on Somaliland's economic lack of routes and corruption of Somalia comes from profit incentives. Somaliland, if recognized, will have their own profit incentives now because they'll be dealing with international recognition, which means that they'll then experience the same corruption Somalia experiences. But also their 2017 tax off evidence indicates that they already have an EEZ and none of their evidence actually indicates that it's not enforced. It literally says the government and law has passed EEZ, which means it's completely non-unique. But then we would also see our nuclear terror impact as a prerequisite. Boost 18. Terror attacks involving nuclear bombs, small primitive bomb team Hiroshima would propagate worldwide. If we have terror, that means it already decks our food supply, which is a prerequisite and actually short circuits their argument. Then go to pandemics. UDA, the Unified AU makes pandemic preparedness affordable. Agave 20. The AU must be coordinating coolers and game purchasing power. And global given that African countries are being shut out of the global market by cooling countries, likely to purchasing what Africa needed as a block national strategy alone is weak in the face of the pandemic and affirming ruins AU diplomatic relations and deck stability. And on 4. African states are afraid of setting a precedent to records in the separatist movement and restrictive state political realities diverge from legal principles. Non-interference and boundaries have cast a great challenge in the cause Somaliland friction with regional claimants while complicating diplomatic efforts in the region. Then, not only because the UN can already provide pandemic, so actually when you affirm it decks the AU capability, which means that even if pandemic is provided, the AU is not distributing it equally, which means it's really, really bad for Africa. But then there's no link because the UN can provide pandemic relief to anyone who needs it. COVID shows this. Nations no day to address immediate health needs of UN partners have launched a version of the time COVID-19 solidarity response from countries funding to address immediate health needs, raising over 150 million so far to support the world's most vulnerable countries. The UN launched a $2 billion coordinated global humanitarian response plan by the AMS code of the world's most vulnerable countries. But then no one because there's no extinction of diseases, or not variation, there's diseases don't try species extinct diseases of the highly population of like the individuals not each other diseases burn out. There will be a variant of host may resist eventually less virulent individuals survive. Skip the whole or yeah, and then no babies and peers to moving in also 20. How the unlimited cause of extinction takes in around 200,000 years without being discriminated evidence that rate of prevalence is low efforts and not come close. Only extinction being caused by diseases rapid humans or geographically dispersed genetically different people rational responses appear small and increasing immunity lower variance change advances and resistance and mutation limit the damage. I'll do the weighing here. First, on magnitude, prioritize extinction impacts in the round. There is no risk for extinction from pandemics, and on overfishing, they can't even give you the after analysis of which of the multiple actors they talk about are actually going to cause war. We prefer our analysis, where we specifically advocate that Somalia and Ethiopia are going to war, and that causes US and China drawn because of their respective interests, but also on our contention one, where we implicate that China uniquely cares about the region, which is why they would in fact make them give you after analysis. They can't just assert that nuclear war will happen, but you also prefer our first contention on distance on it. It short circuits all of their impacts. Any impact that relies on Somaliland of a functioning government is decked if they're being corrupted by a bad economy.
You might have to like start real quickly.
Sure.
Are you 100% sure you've not severed from any reps of a running case?
I have not what?
Not severed from any reps of a running
What does
case.
that mean?
Like, never mind, it's fine. That sounds like. Yeah. Alright, one thing. With the mic. Um, no, I'm sorry. Very cool. That's 150 plus 3 is just under 201, whatever it is.
Yeah, you're.
Yeah. You wanna add?
A doctor's.
Boom, frontlining, there's just something that don't do once. Yeah, you go. Alright, everyone is good. Time. Start. I just want to. Cool.
It's her order.
That's yeah, screenshot, not yours. I'll get the wings up at the bottom. Right, everyone is good. Everyone's good. Time, start now. Honestly, there's no violent climate change, and the black setting happens anyway. There's all cause that causing off paper. There's climate change. We solved all the link trade. I'll get that on their case. But first, you can on the Psalm 24 link trade. Just as one of them, all the encourage state election, but any all cause that cause a dump demarcus between the link trade doesn't happen. Terminal defense of the dedication between someone else already properly. It doesn't really matter how that keeps the debt financing terms. It doesn't matter if they get more corrupt money that are already affecting democracy, which definitely consider all the terms that are added. On C2, we'll just concede the fact that on C2, they just said that corruption was profit incentive was there's no one because corruption is already there. They just cross up the Hassan they read, but they said that Ethiopian backlash cuts maritime actions and there's no question. But we said that their evidence doesn't look specific to the actual actors are evidence specific to that you can stop nursing like putting new ports, which is more important. It doesn't matter if Somaliland lacks economic routes insofar there's global access to fishing. There's no the definition of fishing stock. We definitely still win a lane. On the nuclear terror stuff, I'll just get on their case. On pandemics, they said a unified AU makes pandemic prevention affordable, but their own linked evidence on the diplomacy, literally school the two sides fund stuff that talks about diplomacy, international actors. There's no one why international actors like China, US diplomacy would affect the regional diplomacy in the AU. Hold the line there. The only thing it says about the AU specifically is that it would cause hard pressed challenges, but the word about diplomacy, specifically diplomacy from international actors, and the uniqueness there is diplomacy from the AU. But then specifically on pandemics, they say the UN completely believe it, but our arguments are really for research and that who establishes research and disease prevention foundations. So they can see the link evidence that the ISPN is the new program. They can map genomic viruses and see the genomic viruses before they actually cause a pandemic, which we stop the root cause of pandemic. And they can see that the uniqueness of these tick-based viruses are understudied in Africa. That's why they're uniquely key right now to be studied right now because they're underserved regions. They see no extinction for disease, but we all argue there is extinction. Their own Claire 23 evidence read in case literally says that pandemic caused extinction. Don't let them read defense on their own impact from C1. That's a terrible time scoop. If you buy any of that, there's probably a severance order because that allows them to just sever from rest in case someone considers the time scoop as an independent order to either drop the impact defense or drop their case. At that point, start on top. Pandemics who cause extinction. So 621. Brutal legal profits and aggressive actions that destabilize the entire system, risk of nuclear weapons, pandemic is driving weapons of mass destructions, and pandemics and capital commanders who have nuclear strikes creating accidents for pre-march nuclear first strike state use the pandemic as a cover provocation to believe that atmosphere is stable. But the pandemic spreads to other countries, to the US and China get into conflict, and they use it as a provocation excuses that causes nuclear war. On their case, on investment first, John 21 finds. With the IMF projection for growth in 46 African countries between 2015 and 2026, the estimated average growth of 3.8% of countries with the IMF programs, while the non-program countries is 3.4%. For Argentine, an independent analysis of the IMF in every African country until 2026, in a peer-reviewed journal of African outcomes, our evidence is more predictable, and outside countries like development of growth. Also, there's no lines of lands to brink for hedge wars. We said there's alternative actions such as Taiwan and there's the trade wars that definitely happen that cause more cause. And remember, their argument isn't about Chinese hedge, but you got to put transition wars. But transition wars only happen when the other power does not get power. Exerting U.S. influence in Africa, whether it be bad or good, still put some footing for the U.S. to prevent transition wars, which is their impact. Hold the line there. Their impact isn't Chinese hedge bad, it's transition wars, but transition wars only happen when there's one leading power leading China to do whatever it wants in Africa without U.S. actually getting recognition from the AU would lead to more transition wars. On C2. 1. No link. Chinese support is minimal. Hall 24. Watch out offer financial justice in African countries, Somalia factor trade intersection. Also about corruption, crime, virus, crippled development, China's recent gesture. And no link. Even Somalia one, it can't escalate. No capable district by tyranny, lacks of growth. Hall 24. Somalia governments reacted but lacks of military capability to stop Somalia's brutal economy surgery against Al-Shabaab. The Somali government's little control with little governments, elders or Al-Shabaab quickly economy. Somalia can do little. And if the armies can reach for war and distract by internal conflict. 3. It that really have war due to loss of great conflict, the army spread then and with multiple challenge conflict, those army reaching Ethiopia, sending fires, fighting and escalating airport. That means there's no drawing scenario. Ethiopia can't fight back, then it doesn't go to the Red Sea states. It never causes international draw. There's no specificity which actor you can strike first. If there's a drawing, you should probably hold the line there and don't let them need new extrapolations of which international actors threat to nuclear force on a drawing scenario. Insofar they read no uniqueness that Ethiopia can't stand the war, we're the only one that don't let them read new ones. If Ethiopia can't stand the war, there's no drawing, there's no nuke scenario. On C3, there is no warrant or no evidence that Al-Shabaab wants to do nuclear terror. We're the only ones that give you the extent incentives. That's one too. No Al-Shabaab terrorists says within 50 kilometers of facility groups have not have a large interest in illicit material nuclear terrorism. Part of their allied groups except as provide financial support. That's terminal defense of their case. They just said nuclear terror is bad. No, instead that Al-Shabaab wants nuclear terror. And you can go to it's impossible for terrorists to build nukes under challenges. Waste 15. You're able to are highly predictable that terrorists will require the projectile implosion weapon and totally difficult technical problem cut the clear name. And there's no warrant. Where are they getting plutonium or use terrorist weapons from? They say China's promoting in Africa. That's not a warrant. It's a warrant. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll forget the one for the big project.
Yep. Mark the world.
Um,
This is perfect.
We're gonna take
Prep, right?
prep.
Yes.
Just let her know. I'll take preps right now.
Sorry.
Okay. We have 25.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, are you gonna cross?
Yeah.
Can I take the first question?
Yes.
Let's talk about pandemics. When's the next pandemic gonna happen?
I think that probably goes exponential each day because climate change gets worse each day.
Exponential each day.
Yeah.
So what is it right now?
I don't know. There's no like baseline. That's like the same thing we asked. Like, what's the probability that like they mute each other? Like these countries.
Well, I'm not asking probability.
I think
I
here's
was
like,
asking about time.
right. Like, you can't like magically predict the pandemic. Let's explain how the science of pandemic works. Like very simply, there's vectors, and the longer these vectors can get transmitted, but as climate change increases, it means it's a higher chance. And the fact that these vectors are understudied, and the tick-based vectors are primarily like 31 of them are already infected animals, and every day that goes longer, as climate gets worse, these vectors stand
Wait, the
longer.
animals
It's a
are
higher
already infected. Can you de-infect animals?
Well, it's not, but it's the animals have to be able to pass it on to humans, right? And that's why when the vectors get longer, they get more communicable. But can I get a question?
Sure.
Okay, let's talk specifically about your nuclear material scenario. Name me one line in your evidence which says that Al-Shabaab has access to nuclear like materials.
Our nuclear terror scenario.
Yeah, so we need one line that's specific to Al-Shabaab having access to nuclear capabilities.
I mean, we're not gonna go for that, but I can read you a line.
I mean, if you're not going to go for it, then that also kicks out of the link term on C2, on our C2, right? Because the link terms depend on nuclear terror.
Oh, well,
So that actually was not a lecture. That was our impact evidence. It was like
Oh,
not a
okay.
term
Okay.
that we read.
Okay,
as a
okay,
response to
whatever,
your
yeah. All right, fair enough.
Can I take a
You
question?
go for it.
Okay, let's talk. Actually, let's talk about pandemics again, right? Let's go. Like, if you told me international actors are like getting involved, but if the African Union doesn't like each other and African states don't want to work with each other, how are international actors able to be successful?
So a couple things. I'd say that your evidence, which is like your evidence is that if the AU cannot work together, they can't do pandemic prevention, right? But your argument, your evidence that says that diplomacy would break down is about international diplomatic actors. Like, why do I care if China can't like do diplomacy with the AU? If the AU can function on its own. it's able to do it. You read no impact scenarios or warrants that AU cohesion breaks down. It's the diplomacy and the next line after is about international actors. But second, our argument is who cares if the pandemic never leaves Somaliland or Somalia because it can get caught and it can be put into the genomic system where it can be mapped, and that's how viruses and vaccines are made. It doesn't matter. We're the prerequisite pandemic actually happening. Like your link turn happens like post-pandemic. We saw pre-pandemic, which is full argument. But can I get a question? Sure. All right, let's talk specifically about this hedge scenario, right? Can you explain to me? Wasn't there a high like the hedge scenario is inherently a fastidious trap, right? There's two rising powers, one power, and they fight for battle. But if like the US is just like lagging, isn't that when China's rise happens?
No, when the US wait, who's showing Thucydides trap?
Yeah,
Like whatever,
current
Thucydides
hedge.
trap from the Greek, whatever. Is
Yeah.
about two hegemonic powers fighting each other, right?
Right.
China only acts when it's threatened. That's the warranting case, which is that China really wants
But
Africa and specifically Somaliland.
China's
Because
already
you give me
offered
that,
loans.
wait, can I finish?
Yeah.
You give me this thing that's like, wait, China offering loans to they act in response to the United States. Right now, like sure, if China's leading, if the US interacts with forces China lead war, it leads to an escalation spiral. That's how transition wars work. They're trying to like, okay, if two powers are there, one of them is not. The transition is figuring out who's leading. That's what causes the war. You don't actually respond
That's
to
not
that.
what your
But we
evidence.
also indicate that Somaliland is key because of the Taiwan analysis you give us. But we'll explain that more.
Sure.
Yeah, like 10 seconds. Do y'all mind if I sit?
Wait, we'll take 5 seconds. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, cool. 4 seconds.
Okay, cool. The order of the speech is going to go through May, lay, up, and if it's not that, I'll sign those type of comments. Oh, sorry, wait, I'll do a quick stuff on like the democracy stuff from their case, we could write that one.
Okay.
Okay. Alright. Anyone not ready? First on this corruption stuff, they try to tell you that Somalia is corruption, and so you need to automatically drop our first contention. No, first, the evidence is talking about Somalia's perception of democracy, why Somaliland under Somalia is suffering under poor democratic, democratic decline. However, when we have independent democracy with Somaliland, that's better. And also, it's not about economic corruption, which is what our first contention is about. There are multiple layers to corruption. They have yet to implement it as such. At that point, let's go to our investments contention. Quickly on Ethiopia, we'll concede that their Al-Shabaab can't build nukes and won't escalate. Also concede that there's no drawing or war on Ethiopia, so you can just vote for investments. First, Somaliland's democracy is strong right now. Independent of Somalia, it is able to have strong democracies locally, which is why it's able to have taxation revenue for its internal democracy, which is why it's able to spread to outside places. It's why it's able to slowly build up its investments. That's why our supportive evidence from 2024 identifies that the economy is growing right now. However, you push all of that progress aside when you vote for the affirmation, because they can see the prior your 13 evidence and Kavanaugh 03 evidence that says that when we do the app, it incentivizes like countries like Somaliland, who are third world countries, to go and invest in, or go and ask for IMF and World Bank loans, and IMF and World Bank loans, who are automatically profit seeking, seek to make trades with Somaliland, which says that hey, in exchange for money, you have to make long-term reforms to your government that allows us to make more money off of that profit. That's really bad, because in the short term, that changes the way that we spend money to, I don't know, things like pandemics or pandemic research. But then it also changes the way in the long term, because we automatically put more people in poverty. But then also go to their stuff on China. Our evidence is pretty clear. It's not about a hegemonic war about who's gaining more power. It's a perceptual link that the United States is coming into the region. Encroachment still is a shift in power. And I think it's pretty clear to say that China does not want the United States in the region. And the reason why is because Taiwan has been always supporting in Somaliland, and China has seek to get rid of that power. However, you get rid of that power through the like a Western country like the IMF or World Bank coming in, then it's really, really bad, because China will go into a hegemonic transition war, which causes nuclear proliferation. For our 2018 evidence, they actually haven't made an indent on the probability. At that point, you're running on the time frame that says that we would at best escalate into a conflict, which means we kill millions at best, and at worst, we cause a nuclear conflict with escalation per player. On the response that African countries are doing good economically, no, it's the response that we are building right now. However, it doesn't matter, because it's specifically about Somaliland that says we're in the recovery. Let's do the weighing. First, they consider that they have no bright line on the climate change. That means that their impacts filter about climate change coming first and pandemics coming first is non-existent. But then second, they consider that if we have a bad economy in the short term and long term, that's really bad, because short term barriers impact the long term. So when I say that we don't have an infrastructure to help fund research, that means we are unable to help solve the animals and ticks in Africa. But then second, that we would short circuit the impact. But then go to their contention, cross-apply what I just talked about, like debt trapping, cross-apply to our turn on climate financial debt traps. When we have climate financial like incentives for them, and if Somaliland is able to be recognized in international world order, that causes them to go to other like all groups to get investment for climate and pandemic solving. That means that they automatically go into debt trapping, which is really bad because they never solved for pandemics in the first place. But then go to their response on pandemics. They don't go for any impacts of C1 and C2. So we'll go for the fact that they can see that there are all pathogens in their own evidence that says that they exist elsewhere in Africa, and their evidence from being a long time ago saying that cows already have tick infections and that we have research on them probably means that the low probability of pandemics. But also they can't give you a time frame, and also RAU short circuit. Actually don't go for that.
I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong.
I was.
No.
Okay, I have like 42 left.
42, by the way.
It's gonna be halfway. Is anybody not? Sorry, after. Yeah, after. Start on pandemics. Right now, you know, the Somaliland is at a risk of a pandemic because they are unique understudied vector death. These diseases are prevalent and increasing because of climate change. Somaliland currently lacks the information system. When you recognize Somaliland as a state, then the World Health Organization can directly give it the international pathogen surveillance network, which solves for extinction, because when there's a pandemic, world weapons of mass destruction use threshold is lowered in conflict, and every hotspot lights up, leading to a new war and extinction because it becomes too cold and dark to grow food. They tell you a few responses in the last week. First, they talk about debt traps. There are no debt traps. They can see the meta-analysis from like the Georgetown Center of Economics, which says that the IMF's projection for growth within 46 African countries between 2015 and 2026, the growth for percentage of countries with IMF programs is 3.8, whereas for non-program countries it's 3.4. You should prefer our evidence because it's an independent meta-analysis of the IMF effects in every African country until 2026 in the peer-reviewed Journal of African Economies. Our evidence is more predictive and holistic by outside experts by the chair of development at Georgetown. That's why you know for a fact that the IMF is going to increase the pandemic infrastructure that they talk about. You know that the infrastructure is always going to increase, and there isn't debt trapping because it causes growth. But then they tell you that there are alt pathogens elsewhere in Africa. Somaliland regions are pathogens are similar. They can do interoperability, gaining access to research, and the WHO can put in the genomic system. It is about engagement with the WHO in the long term. Then they tell you there's no climate change brightline. They can see that every day that goes by increases the risk of more stable pathogens increasing. They tell you the bad economy in the short term and long term economy means that there's no infrastructure to fund research, but you can actually create that through the IMF. Prefer the evidence there. On the short circuit, they can see that the probability gets higher every day. But then pandemics prereq because there are infinite actors weighing in on a conventional conflict between the US and China, but there's no one who can intervene for the unique vectors in Somaliland. Pandemic causes death and lights up conflict hotspots between the US and China because of resource wars, and definitely short circuits their case, and they're weighing on economic stabilization comes where they already got that Somaliland is a fake democracy with its own corruption. Voting is on evidence, which means that the weighing is not unique, and it's definitely tried IF. You shouldn't feel confident voting on their case because it's reliant on the smaller economy of Somaliland that has a much smaller scope than the pandemic. Remember, there's delineated time frame because it takes longer for them to reach the conflict escalation ladder, whereas we start solving immediately. Let's go to there first. On China Hedge, we tell you that Somaliland is suffering democratically right now. They misunderstand their own impact scenario. Transitional wars happen when a rising power challenge a current power. Currently, the U.S. is the only is the hedge power. The only way that China rises is if the U.S. doesn't challenge it. But then they tell you that it's a perceptual link that the U.S. is coming into the region. Encroachment link is based on Taiwan. That means that there is a litany of other reasons why the U.S. and China are always going to fight against each other, whether that's conflict hotspots in the South China Sea or Taiwan. They don't respond to this in the last speech, but you do know that there isn't going to be any kind of debt trapping that even leads to China's rise in the first place, because there's always going to be a more like meta-analysis. Also, on the way, nuclear conflict becomes much worse when their actors feel like pressured because of the pandemic. That means that the nuclear thresholds are lessened. If anything, we're higher on the conflict escalation ladder than they are, which means our delineated time frame is a lot better. Okay.
Yeah, we got the bus.
Yeah. Y'all can take the first question. Okay, cool.
let's go into pandemics. You tell me that there's always an increased risk every time, like every day we wait, but I find that pretty nebulous. So can you give me like, I don't know, like a date, time,
I mean,
year,
yeah, I think
decade?
we had this conversation in second cross.
Yeah, I
right?
know, I
There
just
isn't-
didn't get an
yeah,
answer.
There isn't a, like, it's the same question, right? Like, on what day does like the transitional war happen? Like, you can't answer that question.
As
like,
soon as you vote for the
I mean,
yeah.
I don't think that's particularly true.
Well, you
Your own
don't think that,
evidence-
but that's
I mean,
what I'm answering.
Your evidence does not say, the minute you affirm Somaliland's a ring, China and US nuke each other, like the
Sure,
evidence. does not
our
say that
warranty
either.
says that
I mean,
though,
so
but your
saying-
evidence doesn't even
I
say
mean,
when a pandemic is
does it-
coming, so like, I don't understand what the implication of that is here.
So on the time frame issue, I think there's a thing, because what your evidence actually says is that there has to be like some amount of like debt trapping, like hedge collision happening in the region. That doesn't mean that it happens immediately. But what our evidence says is that
That
like,
trapping happens immediately because
No,
they go to the
debt
high.
trapping
No,
also
it
just
takes
takes
time
time
to do
for
it.
hedge
Debt
funds,
trapping
right?
only happens when you feel the effects of one. But second, to answer the question that was originally asked, right?
Yeah,
The argument saying that there's 35 vectors that have been found right now, but they have not been communicable because of the region's temperature. As temperatures go up, these vectors become long and communicable, which means the dangerous threat, which means each day you wait is trying to act. And you can see that these vectors have never been studied and they're understudied in Africa, which is why we do not know
right, so our,
their pathogen
okay,
availability.
Monica can extend the analysis, okay, I'm not gonna do that.
I mean, sure.
Obviously, but you could take it.
Alright, let's go specifically onto that, right?
Okay,
Explain to me how there's a transitional conflict if explain how there's a transitional conflict in our world if our world is the only one that challenges China. Because China's already on the rise. US is the
That
current
is the-
hegemon.
no, the US is not the
Wait,
current
that
hegemon.
is the-
Our evidence indicates that China is the biggest player in Africa right now, and it's specifically about the nationalist movements between Somalia and Somaliland and the relation
Wait.
that it has to Taiwan.
That's not answering the question. The
Sorry,
question is, right?
you
The
can
question is
rephrase
about hedge wars, right? Take away from Africa as a region. Hegemonic wars. Who is the current hedge?
But it's a hegemonic war happening.
No,
in
it's a
Africa.
transition war. Transition war means that there's someone that's
Yeah, I
leading
know
the
the
hegemonic war.
transition war.
So I have
You
a
need to
question.
explain what it is.
Right, so who is the current leading hedge?
I know.
That,
And no,
Yeah.
so if China's the current leading hedge, then why
So
is
when
there?
they feel like they have an encroachment
transition- okay.
upon their power, they start asserting that dominance, which is why we would see
But
the
they're-
transition war between
You-
the
okay.
US transitioning in and China feel like they're being transitioned
So your
out.
argument is predicated that China is the leading hegemon right now.
I mean,
And the
if you go to
transitional
our
war,
evidence, our
and the
evidence
transitional war happened because the US is the rising power.
Okay,
At the opposite stage
transition
for
war that
convenience.
we're talking about is that right now, like transition wars were caused by a transition in hegemony. If China's there building hegemony right now and they get threatened by the United States encroaching, that is what sparks the war.
I
The
can
transition
read the
war,
line
it's not
for
really
you.
just someone rises and then like it
Someone
starts. The
falls,
US
yeah.
encroaching is the
But-
first step
Wait,
of
let
the
me
transition.
just read you a part, okay, ready? The Horn of Africa is a hotspot for international competition driven by China's rising economic and military presence. Somaliland is an underutilized asset that the United States cannot afford to overlook. Somaliland recognition is geopolitical with far-reaching ramifications for East Africa and the Red Sea.
That's
I
my
don't think
point.
that flows
China,
because it
yeah,
says it's a
it also
hotspot,
says
but that's
China
fine,
is the
that's
rising
fine.
power, which is our argument.
Okay, we have like 10 seconds. The order is gonna go halfway, like, or I'm sorry, midway up. Yeah. I'm gonna start on my first round. Is anyone not ready? Okay. You're signing your ballot on our argument investments. Remember that Somaliland is not corrupt right now economically. Let's clear up the corruption debate here. They tell you that we said that it has a corrupt democracy. No, even if it has issues like extrajudicial corruption, that's separate from the economic corruption. There's different layers of corruption here. That's the analysis Katie made that when conceded. Right now, Somaliland doesn't have economic corruption because they have to rely on taxation from the people, which means they use their funds accurately. But then when they get recognition, the IMF gives them loans that not only causes corruption, but also causes structural reforms because to be able to pay back the loans, they have to reform their entire nation, which increases poverty. And then also independently, when the IMF and the World Bank and the United States get involved in this area, it threatens China. Let's clear up the transition wars debate right here. They've been telling you the entire time, oh, who's the rising power, who's the rising power. It doesn't matter who's the rising power. I'll do the analysis. The idea of the transition war is just that if there's a hegemonic power there and their power is threatened, it starts to provoke them. They've conceded all of our analysis. Somaliland is uniquely key for China because Somaliland and Taiwan have ties, and China cares about Taiwan. The all analysis they give you is about Taiwan, but we've explained that Somaliland is the key point for the Taiwan issue, which is why China's there, and our evidence is really clear. And anything that's a hotspot for the Chinese-US issues, I mean, there's always a risk of hegemonic war. They just keep talking about Thucydides. No, do the warranting. We're telling you that if we threaten them, China's the defensive actor, and they're going to respond with nuclear war. Nuclear war sparks extinction through famine and loss of food. Then go to the Wayne debate here. They talk about delineating time frame and a longer time frame for escalation. No, they don't let even if Rome Rita sounds really good, the warranty doesn't make any sense. Remember that there's no way that we can find when pandemics actually trigger. They tell you increases exponentially every day. We don't even know what probability we're starting from. But we give you clear time frame that it's perceptual link for China. So as soon as the US encroaches, China starts escalation. Escalation literally happens within weeks. You both there, but it also short circuits their epidemics. So there's increased conflict. There's no way to implement research for pandemics. And if people are poor and there's a debt trap happening, there's no problem. They give you the meta-analysis impact that says there's growth happening, but we respond to this. Even the countries are growing, they're still in debt. Name a single African country that isn't in debt. If they're still in debt, they have to prioritize that first before they prioritize any of the pandemic research. Even if there's other areas of economic growth, they can't implement infrastructure like that. But then go to their case. Remember first that our debt argument for short circuit all of their arguments because they can't actually access them if their pandemic except so the countries are poor. But then they've also conceded their turn about climate adaptation specifically. That's when they try to get funding for climate adaptation that short circuits and makes it impossible to adapt. So if the countries aren't able to adapt to climate adaptation, they themselves say that climate is the root cause of why they're having pandemics. So if the climate change is worse, if there's an increase in pandemics, it short circuits their impact. It's clean for the day.
I'm good to go. Just gonna be case, weighing their case. Everyone is good. Time. Start. So no the risk of pandemics is unique, but understudy vectors are any disease or problem and increasing climate change, so mild and next information system mechanism of the state, the World Health Organization directly give the international pathogens, so those no results are secret, there's pandemic weapons of matter to for the threshold of the one confidence in every hospital lies up into nuclear war extinction. First said that there's instability and they're the root cause, but but the argument is that Somaliland does its own research that who builds systems and gives them access to systems which definitely have nothing to do with that. There's still no application why if the country's in debt, they still can't have economic prosperous growth and still do research. Somalia, like Mozambique and Ethiopia definitely still do research and are still in debt, which definitely proves our point, and there's already systems there set up in place which proves that you can still be in debt, but still do research, which proves that empirics definitely prove, and it's who that's doing research, not Somaliland. But second, they say they say that they read a climate change, but there's no implication about the debt trapping on climate. And second, remember, they've already had that there's no critical mass of climate change, and that was conceded defense. At that point, you know two things: climate change is still going to get worse every day, and they've already said that you can't solve from climate just from African Union itself, which means on that climate change is still going to get worse every day, which means the vectors are still longer communicable, which definitely needs to target analysis on that. They say there's no starting probability, but no, the probability is infinitely exponential every day because they've conceded that these pathogens are understudied and there are new vectors that are happening. The longer they can get communicable, the higher chances of extinction, which is why it's triad F. On delineated time frame, there's misunderstood delineated time frame. There's an escalation ladder where both sides have to actually nuclear. There has to be conflict, then there's dialogue, then there's more conflict, then there's more dialogue, there's more conflict, there's more dialogue. Only when the red button's pressed when their actual scenario trigger, but our scenario triggers right away because they've conceded the analysis that when leaders are under pressures from pandemic, they're more likely to nuke first, which means even if their link triggers first, and in this transition wars first, it doesn't go nuclear first, which is the internal link delineation, which you have to break the clash on, which then short circuits their case. At that point, you can go into their case. They just misunderstood this hegemonic argument. Their own impact evidence, quote unquote, says that China's rise could produce intense hegemonic competition. But the argument is that the US counters China's rise by increasing its presence in Africa, then there's no transitional period. They keep saying that China is the leading power, but their own evidence, which is in the case, which is the 2018 evidence, says that China is the rising power. The only way you can stop a transitional war is by increasing the rise of the current power, which is the US doing investment and US increasing its aid in Somalia, which is our argument. You should hold the functional line there. But at best, you do know that the probability increases every day, which means triad definitely goes up. You don't know when the escalation ladder triggers on this, but you know the minute you affirm, you stop the escalation ladder from pressures from political actors.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks for doing.
No. Actually,
I got like the stuff like that came from and stuff, but I didn't think it was like a.
no, it wasn't a turn on place. Yeah, it was just like blank.
Yeah.
I was disappointed when I saw contention.
Why, you wanted the K?
I wanted the K.
I wanted substance.
I wanted the K.
I mean, you at least wanted, you want the.
Wait, I
K,
used to
like-
want hello wanted the K. Like, what were you gonna read, theory?
I was gonna read the shell I wrote.
Yeah,
That's when we were like, oh,
what's the
because
show?
when we asked you about theory debates, you were like,
You're
well,
not gonna tell us what the
I don't know.
I'm gonna hit a K sometime this term and I'll break it that.
show. Oh,
Actually, yeah, they'll probably.
I don't even know what the shell is. Oh my
Just gonna take these off.
He just, I think sometimes he just says, wait, because we're about to get Blair.
The shell
Blair,
is
Blair, so we're gonna
it's
break
the
it.
unknown.
No, Blair's about to go.
Oh, we
Wait, don't tell them that.
look at a really funny round Blair.
Wait, what'd you read?
Meet your own interests.
They don't.
That round was interesting.
That was very interesting round. That was a round I'll be etched in the memories of Ivy Street for a walk.
It's still going.
I don't know.
Cool round.
The person left.
Wait,
watched
say
it.
how to it.
No.
Well, you just did.
I might see why Alexis is like this.
It's, I think like,
Wait, it's still going.
But
If
it's-
someone will watch it.
Hi guys, follow Nueva Public Forum on Instagram, and I guess Fairmont if you want to.
And 7 minutes.
Oh, and Lakes, and Seven Lakes.
the Fairmont
Actually,
admin
we have
was
a public
like,
forum calls.
wait, I heard that Alexis and.
Probably. I don't think you guys follow that.
Yeah, like,
We don't follow you guys.
I also got
Good
logged. I got
shout.
logged.
I'm I thought we did. I feel like I saw 7 links.
Wait, I know I'm about to.
Okay, but I feel like we followed you back, right?
Like, we know.
Let's check. We actually might not follow you. I might just be incorrect.
Wait, what?
Oh wait, we don't follow you. Hold on.
That's so
Oh, so we
offensive.
actually also don't follow you, so we'll follow you.
Yeah, we did. I just
Oh,
followed.
this is a diabolical video.
I'm so happy that you guys made me send a doc so I can just copy and paste the card for this Thursday.
Wait, it's Nueva Public Forum, right?
Yes.
Okay, we followed.
Whoops.
Who runs to your Instagram?
Our Instagram's quite good.
More time than the Instagram.
This was a good round.
Don't worry, I cut my first argument just copy yesterday. No, like Ara was always sleeping and I'm like, Ara, read 3:30 in the morning and he makes her. It was the pandemic
Did you
argument.
just like get?
Yeah. And poor Ara was here for like 8 hours because he told me. I said,
Yeah,
"Oh."
he was on.
Yeah, he was on your place. So he didn't have a room to check out. Like,
Oh wait, seriously? Oh.
Was that in the lobby?
he sat in the lobby.
Wait, should I just pause the live stream for them? Like.
Oh.
Oh, I didn't. It's exciting.